Hello everyone, this is Simon from writtenlegalenglish.com and welcome to this video where I'm going to talk you through my suggested answer for the competition text from last week. So let's get started. Okay, before we get into the nuts and bolts, the first thing I want to do is apologise. For the last 3 weeks I've given you texts which generally require you to think about 2 or 3 different things, and so they are approachable texts. This one, on the other hand, well, just have a look at the things I asked you to look at. Things, what are the messages? There are legalese words in there. There are legal verbs you've got to think about. There are negatives to work with. There's the issue with one big sentence. How do you divide that up? In short, I get the feeling that I threw you into the deep end and simply see if you could sink or swim. And that's probably the reason why I got 0 suggested answers from you guys. Normally when that happens, it happened on one of the weeks, I think on week 2, and then I send out a message on Facebook and I say, listen guys, 24 hours extra time, give me something. But this time I figured maybe we should just move on. And in this video, I'll go through the process that I used, or that I went through with one of my students, as a matter of fact, to try and break this text down. In previous competition weeks, I've asked you to go through a step-by-step process, or at least in the explanation videos at the end of the week, I've identified the process that I go through, which is to use the enter key. So to break down that text onto different lines so you can see what's going on. Another thing you might do is identify the verbs. Sorry, I was going to say nouns. Identify the verbs to see if they will help you understand what's going on. And if the verbs don't help you, to then have a look at the nouns to then see if you can find any hidden verbs, which then might help you. The key thing with this text, which perhaps made it so difficult, was that you really have to understand the context. Sometimes you just have to step back from the language and you've got to ask yourself, where would I see this? What's the basic idea behind this? What's going on? Now that's of course a very useful process to go through if you're analysing writing and you're having difficulty with it. Holistically, generally speaking, you're not sure what's happening. It's just to step back and just think, what's the larger context here? And the larger context with this is, as you can see next to me, is that a company is putting in an installation for a customer. That's the basic context. So it could be an electrical installation, plumbing installation, gas installation, any other kind of installation. And that this clause is written to protect the company, that the company has no liability towards the customer as regards the work that the company has done. There we go. I finally managed to get it out. So bearing in mind that context, it helps us to pick apart the language a little bit. And working with one of my students, good work this week by the way, Sylvia, we managed to break down the message into 2 main parts. And the first part, as you can see next to me, is the basic main message, which is the company does not give any warranties concerning 1, the adequacy, 2, the safety, or 3, other characteristics of the customer's installation. But then the second point is the exception. And the exception is, except if the company gives a warranty in writing. Now that's the basic main message, that we give no liability, or there is no liability towards us, except if we say so in writing. But once you get that basic main message, you've then got to think about the criteria and then ask yourself, is that criteria relevant or important? Does it have to be in there? Do we not need it? And there are 3 sets of criteria that I could identify. The first one is how a warranty might be given. So the company is writing this because the company thinks a warranty might be given by the mere fact that they inspect the installation, or they don't reject it, whatever that means, or in another way, whatever that means. There's just ambiguity everywhere. There are no details. There's no clarity. This is really, really difficult to try and understand exactly what's going on here. From the company's point of view, you could argue that there is a commercial benefit almost to using this ambiguity, as it might cover everything. But from a user's point of view, this is a disaster. Then there's another set of criteria here, which is about which or about what a warranty might be given. So a warranty might be given for the adequacy, safety, or other characteristics of the installation. And then the company says, but we don't have any responsibility for the adequacy, safety, or other characteristics. So there's 3 sets of criteria there which really, really complicate this text, not least that everything is thrown into one sentence. For the time being, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to save discussion for legal verbs, which we don't use in everyday English, or legalese terms, for another redrafting or another competition task. But needless to say, we could go into quite a lot more detail and a lot more discussion about this particular text, which is perhaps why I didn't get any suggested answers for it. But I'll learn from my mistakes, and the text for next week will be a little bit easier for you guys to grapple with. Okay, with that being said, make sure you're watching my Facebook page and my YouTube channel tomorrow morning to see the competition text for this week. See you then.